I don't know how it's even possible, but Darryn Peterson continues to exceed expectations and soar above the insane hype meter that's already ready for the Kansas freshman phenom.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks, a little bonus episode for you on today's edition of LOJ, and we're going to be talking Darryn Peterson and KU Hoops on this bonus episode. Thank you to everydayers catching each and every episode of the show, including our bonuses, and thank you for listening or watching anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe. We're going to be breaking down this Fran Fraschilla story from Darryn Peterson that he posted on Twitter. We'll get into that. We'll get what does it mean for KU? What is he going to bring as a three-point shooter? And a little bit on past history of players who have been at Blue Bloods that were number one picks recently. And it's pretty exciting. You're going to want to listen to that because it'll certainly give you higher expectations for this Kansas team when we get to that on the show. Let's start right there on the show. Here is what Fran Fraschilla posted on social media, on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, earlier on Thursday morning. He said, wanted to give it 24 hours for me to digest what I saw at KU Hoops practice, but Darryn Peterson hit 8 straight threes, some highly contested, in an intra-squad scrimmage yesterday, in addition to having an incredible feel and IQ for the game. That was ridiculous. And it's a picture of him and Darryn Peterson. Again, 8 straight threes. This isn't just like 8 threes in a game alone is insane. Now, in scrimmages, like it's going to be a little bit different. You're not coming off the court, so like the stats are going to be a little bit different, right? But if you hit 8 threes in any game, that's a big deal. 8 straight threes, that is bonkers. Like I remember LeGerald Vick randomly, I think had a game for KU where he was like 8 for 8 or 9 for 9 or something. And it was like KU history. I mean, it just gets my hopes up and feels like we continue to like, cause like, okay, the hype on Darryn Peterson is so high that it scares me. I am expecting him to come in and be an All-American, to be a National Player of the Year candidate. And that scares me to have that high of expectations for a freshman because we saw it with Andrew Wiggins. The hype got too high. And Wiggins ended up being a second-team All-American, and still for some fans it felt like not enough. And that's what worries me, right? That it feels like if he's not the National Player of the Year, that he's not Cooper Flagg, it's not going to live up to it. But then these stories can, like, and that's where it just feels a little different than it too. Like I don't ever remember there being this much substance to the Wiggins hype, where it was stories like this that keep coming out, and the people that I've talked to have been like so complimentary of it in such a real way. And I just find it interesting, too, because as we talk about Kansas, maybe the three-point shooting being one of the bigger questions on this Kansas team. If Darryn Peterson is a flamethrower from 3, that certainly helps you evade that being a problem for this year's team. And I also find it interesting because the 2 other best, like, one-and-done wings that Bill Self has coached at Kansas, Andrew Wiggins and Josh Jackson, neither you would say, like, both of them shot fine from 3. Jackson actually had a really good percentage from 3. But neither one you would say that three-point shooting was a strength of their, or like, I don't know, strength might be the wrong term, was one of their calling cards of their game, was one of their, like, their best attributes, right? And you think of Wiggins, he shot 34% on like 3.5 three-pointers per game. You think of Josh Jackson, who again, really good, just under 38%. It was only 2.6 attempts per game though. Peterson, it sounds like he's going to be a better three-point shooter than either of those guys. And that's really exciting. Now, Jackson and Wiggins had another level of twitch athletically. Peterson's still a good athlete, but that's like another level. But it seems like in every other way, like basketball IQ, professionalism, the three-point shooting, like it just adds to why I'm expecting such a big season for him. And if he is a knockdown three-point shooter, like what is this guy not going to do? He's going to come in, he's going to rebound. He has a great feel for the game and great vision on the floor. He can score at every level. He has incredible footwork and I don't know, just everything is there for him. And if he's hitting all those threes to go with it, like that was the kind of the piece of the puzzle where I'm like, yeah, Peterson might average, I don't know, 18, 6, and 5 this year or whatever it is. And you could tell me he shoots really well, but you could tell me he's going to shoot 33 or 34% from 3 because a lot of times that can be harder for freshmen. A lot of times the three-point shooting gets better as you stay. Maybe he's just going to come in and dominate at everything. Maybe he's just going to be great at everything. That's kind of the feel that I'm getting with this, and it is so exciting. Now, what does it mean specifically for KU's three-point shooting as a team? If he is like this knockdown three-point shooter in addition to everything else he's doing, I want to get to that next. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Today's bonus episode of the show is brought to you by Upside. Are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play Store right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. It's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card, or Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. This bonus episode is also brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service with Supply House. Thanks for joining us on this bonus episode of Locked On Jayhawks, talking Darryn Peterson. So what would this mean for KU? Well, for one of the difficulties, I will say, of if Peterson is your best three-point shooter, is that you want him to have the ball in his hands a lot. And so is that going to impact things if he has to be off the ball a little bit more? Then again, you do have a Marco Jackson and Melvin Council who should allow you to have certain sets where you let Peterson, run off a screen or play off ball and try to knock down a three. So that is the good news for KU, that they do have ample ball handlers to be able to make that happen. Now, the simple math here would be, looking back, last year Kansas made 253 three-pointers. You would hope this year they're going to make more in total. I don't know if they're going to be as good percentage-wise as last year. Last year, percentage-wise, they were like 35%, 35.4% from three-point range. I don't know if they'll get to that. You would hope they're at least close, but like the total amount of threes you would hope is better. Obviously, you would hope there's more games, so it goes up in total. But let's just say we're taking the first 34 games of this season. Again, hopefully there's more games this year. And if you just take the first 34 games of this year and match it up with the 34 last year, you hope it's more total because they're taking more. And then at least if the percentage is a little lower, it's made up for there, right? This is a team that's more athletic. They're more switchable defensively. They can attack more off the dribble. And so they're going to have advantages over last year's team in that area, but you have to at least be a proficient enough three-point shooting team. Now, when I look at Peterson trying to project, like, how many threes is he going to make? What's the percentage going to be? Andrew Wiggins made 43 threes. He took 3.6 per game. And again, that was at like 34%. If based off that, like, shoot, again, if he's making 8 straight threes, like, what if Peterson, so you look at Devontae Graham, one of the best three-point shooting guards Bill Self has had. He was taking like high 6s per game at Kansas his junior and senior season. So let's say Peterson's taking 5 or 6 per game, and maybe it does closer to 7 now with more modern basketball. But let's say it's 5 or 6 per game. If you say 5 per game, and again, that might be low, maybe it's 6, at 34 games, again, just using last year's mark, making 35%, so just a slight increase from Wiggins, but with more volume, that's 60 made three-pointers. If we say 38%, it's closer to 65 made threes. So let's just call it 65. That would mean that, again, you're talking about, 253 made threes. So at that point, where are we talking about the other 188 coming from? But it is very helpful that Peterson would take kind of the biggest chunk in that regard for KU. So Ryland Griffin made 41 threes for KU last year. He was playing like 20 minutes per game, and he shot only like 33.6%. I don't know which of Jaden Dawson or Cole Rosario like wins out that competition. Let's just say the combination of the two plays 40 minutes per game. Could be one guy 25, the other 15, could be both at 20, whatever. But if the combo of those plays double the Ryland Griffin minutes and combines the shoot at 34%, which is actually slightly better than what Griffin gave you, now you're over 80 made threes. Let's just call it 85 between the two of them. Melvin Council made 35 per season at D1 with Wagner and St. Bonnie. Let's say he's at 30, which would take 3 threes per game at 30%. Elmarco Jackson made 12 as a freshman, but he could play more minutes than he did as a freshman. He could be a more efficient shooter. Let's say he hits 20, which would be 2 attempts per game at 30% from 3. And that seems low, honestly. Trey White made 23 last season and the year before, but last year he did it in less minutes, which should go up this year. So if he's taking 3 threes per game at 33%, that's a little over 33. Let's just call it 35 for easy math. So you add up those that we just did quickly, and you're at 170 made threes. We said you need 188 more after counting for the Darryn Peterson ones, right? And then that's not counting for the walk-ons, the spot rotation guys who are going to come in late or for spot minutes. And you look last year, like Wilder Evers, Raquise Passmore, Shaq Moore, they had 11 made threes in the 2019-20 season. You got 9 made threes from Connor Tehan or Chris Tehan, Michael Jankovic, Silvio De Sosa, and Elijah Elliott. So let's just call you get 10 from there. So now you're up to 180, where you needed 188 or, call it, let's try to get to 190, whatever. So you're a tad below. But also keep in mind, I underestimated a lot of those. Like that Peterson number could easily be 70 if he's taking 6 per game with a bit more volume or a bit more efficiency. Dawson and Rosario, that could easily be closer to 90 made threes if they shoot a combined 35 or 36% from 3. Melvin Council, his previous average of 35, what if he just gets to that? That'd be 5 more that you're tacking on there. Marco Jackson could be taking 3 per game instead of 2 per game. And he could be shooting 33% instead of 30%. That'd almost be 15 more made threes alone just from him. Trey White could make a few more. Who knows? Maybe Ngala or Tiller come in and they make a couple here or there. So point being, I don't think that this team, again, is going to shoot the 35.4% from 3 that last year's team did. Although if Peterson ends up being a 40% three-point shooter, you probably will, just from the standpoint of that being the biggest load. But I do think they'll make around the same amount, if not more, threes. And I think you should feel a lot better. But I do think, when you look at Peterson's shooting ability and potential, what he brings to the table, and this story to me, why it's so important is that if this is one of KU's bigger weaknesses and the guy who's going to be your best player is really good at it, it's going to open up the court for everybody else, and it guarantees you have multiple shooters on the floor at all times, right? If Peterson's a really good shooter and you have one of Dawson or Rosario on the floor with him at all times, that guarantees at least 2 shooters with him at all times. And then we'll see what the improvement is, from guys like Elmarco Jackson or what Trey White and Melvin Council can give you. But at the very least, we know White and Council are not non-shooters. And I think we've learned over the past couple of years, like even the guys who are not great 3-point shooters, it's still a difference from guys who they're not great 3-point shooters, but they can shoot them versus guys who are just complete non-shooters overall. So really, really exciting report about Darryn Peterson. All right, I want to get into a history of number 1 picks at the 4 Blue Bloods and why that's very exciting about what Peterson can bring to the table and the team success that Kansas could have this season. This episode of the show is brought to you by Game Time. College football's back, and I don't know how you couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Getting tickets sometimes can feel like a battle. It can be stressful. There's endless queues, hidden fees, price jumps at checkout. That's the worst. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I'm looking at tickets right now for the KU Missouri game. $204, lower section 101, row 56. That's a pretty good deal right there. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thanks again for joining us on this bonus episode. So I wanted to get into a little bit of history and kind of look at how guys who have been number one picks at blue blood schools, and rather specifically, like if you want to argue that UCLA or Michigan State or what, although I don't think they have number one picks recently, I just wanted to look at kind of the one and done era, so I don't think it would apply anyway. But I wanted to look at their number one picks. And I only wanted to look at like the blue bloods specifically because sometimes you see guys like Ben Simmons or Markelle Fultz who end up being number one picks, Anthony Edwards, Cade Cunningham, but they go to schools that it's just not built up around them as much with the roster. And so, like in the case of Cade Cunningham, had a great season, helped Oklahoma State go to the Big 12 championship game in the tournament, get a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. Like that was huge for that program. And so you have that, but it's just not the same from a team success perspective, right? Where, Oklahoma State, who's not an NCAA tournament team, adding this number one pick makes them a tournament team. But when you're talking about the teams like the Blue Bloods that are adding a number one pick, it's usually like you have the other pieces around them that can be the game changer to taking them over the top. And so if we look in the one and done era, here are the players who, and keep in mind, like Peterson's not a lock to go number one in the draft. Like you have Boozer at Duke, you have DeBonza at BYU. Both those guys are going to be kind of in the running of this. We'll see if somebody else kind of breaks out. But you look last year, Cooper Flagg at Duke, number one pick at a blue blood. They go to the Final Four. Paulo Banchero at Duke, blue blood, Final Four. Zion Williamson, number one pick at Duke. They go to an Elite Eight. Karl Anthony Towns was the number one pick. He goes to Kentucky, blue blood. They make a Final Four. Andrew Wiggins at Kansas, second round. Meh. But also important to remember, like what if Embiid stays healthy? They probably get by Stanford. You're at least in the Sweet 16. You're playing an 11 seed Dayton at that point. And then at that point, you are playing the number one overall seed in Florida. So maybe you lose, but still Elite Eight would be more than a respectable run. And even then you played Florida earlier in the season and played a lot better against them in the second half. They're like, who knows? Maybe you win that game. And then if you win that game, you're playing a 7 seed Connecticut and then an 8 seed Kentucky to win a national title. So like point being, if that's the outlier, if that's the bad one, there could be worse. Anthony Davis at Kentucky, blue blood, first pick, national championship. Kyrie Irving at Duke, blue blood, Sweet 16, and he didn't play for full season. John Wall at Kentucky, number one pick, they make an Elite Eight. That is quite the track record. So that means in the one and done era, 8 players have been on blue bloods and gone number one overall in the draft as a one and done freshman. And of those 8, 7 of them made a second weekend. 7 of the 8. And half of them made it to the Final Four. And literally all 8 got 1 or 2 seeds in the NCAA tournament. If that doesn't get you giddy and excited for what Darryn Peterson could mean to this team, I don't know what else could. But that'll do it for this episode of the show. Hope you're all excited now. Check out our KU Mizzou content as well, getting ready for that game now that you are all jazzed up. All right, that'll do it for this episode of the show. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page, where you can like and subscribe. See you next time with Locked On Jayhawks.